Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. I know we're already into the fall season and it's getting cooler, thankfully. No more 90-degree or triple digit weather. um, anyways, so I just wanted to go ahead and get into part two here of this vlog topic that I'm currently doing, getting around transportation and mobility in my Sharing from the Heart series. Um, oh, by the way, if you notice that my wall here is a little bare at the moment, I'm just getting ready to put up my Christmas decorations. I know it's a little early, and we are going to be going into November, of course, and there's still Halloween tomorrow. But since it seems like time goes pretty quickly these days, and the months kind of fly by, So, anyways, I just figured I'd get more of an earlier head start on this as far as putting up my Christmas decor. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So, anyways, part one was more of a generalized overview of how I get around and what I'm able to do, what I have as far as, being able to still get around and be mobile, as well as what I lack. In this one, it's going to be a little more personal, more of a inward perspective. So, getting right to it here. Many tend to be or act surprised concerning how I get around, even more so when I show up by myself. It's as if they expect me to have had a ride with someone everywhere I go and show up with someone. Now, kind of explaining that there have been moments where I've went by myself to an event, whether I've walked there or bicycled there, whichever way, and I may happen to see some people who I know, and we're greeting each other and catching up, talking with each other, and depending on who it is. There have been a couple times where I've been asked, did you come here on your own? And I'm like, well, yeah, I did. As if they were expecting me to show up with someone, as if I had to have gotten a ride with someone to that event, which, I could have, but, that doesn't mean I can't get somewhere on my own, not necessarily having to be always naturally dependent on someone to go to an event, especially if it's an event that's, nearby, not too far. Of course, if it was out of town, I would naturally see if I could get a ride. So, there are moments when I may need a ride to get to a certain place or event, especially out of town, as I just mentioned. I am grateful for those who take the time to ask if I need a ride, or when I ask them, depending on their availability. And, just trying to keep it flexible. If there's a particular someone I'm thinking of, and I try to get in touch with them, ask them if I might be able to get a ride with them somewhere, and if they're able to, great. If not, then that's okay. They probably aren't able to go, or, they can't make it. And so I will try to get in touch with somebody else and see if they're available. Where am I? Most of those who ask me are only taking the time to help a brother out so that they might be a blessing and receive their blessing from God, which, as a fellow Christian, I can appreciate that and do my best to honor that. So of course, naturally, as a fellow brother in Christ, I appreciate my brothers and sisters, and I, don't want to rob them of that blessing. However, there have been occasions where there would be someone who'd give me a ride and take on the responsibility of being a self-chauffeur, meaning that the person takes it upon himself or herself to act as if they're the only ones who can give me a ride, making me feel as if the choice is taken out of my hands and without my permission. So to elaborate on that a bit, as I've just said here in this paragraph, there have been those who, I do appreciate, their availability and their willingness, to go out of their way to give me a ride if they can. But there have been some in and out of my life who seem like, and maybe that wasn't their mentality, of course, but it just seemed as if they were kind of taking matters into their own hands, just kind of making themselves out, that is, to feel responsible for me, as if, they had to be the only person that I had to get a ride with. That, what if I had wanted to, give them a break and ask somebody else? I mean, that's how it is. So anyways, it leaves me feeling disrespected as a functional adult and gaslighted, as if they have control over how I get around and making me feel as though I'm always having to depend on them. And, that's not really a very pleasant feeling to have. It's as if, in some ways, they're communicating that, well, I'm the one going out of my way to give you a ride, so you have to depend on me. You have to, you have to accept, my invitation to give you a ride, or, my willingness to give you a ride. Almost as if, I have no other options. And I do have other options. And in addition to that, I would also state that, I don't know if I have side notes to this or not, but I do appreciate their concern, but my need isn't as high as they might think. I'm not as, deliberately dependent as some might think. And I try not to make myself out to be that way. Um, Moving on here, again, while I am grateful and appreciative for others going out of their way to help me, the truth is it's my decision how I get around and who I choose to ask. While I may be limited in mobility, I am still a functioning independent adult. So, just because, again, I lack an automobile, a vehicle, it doesn't mean I still can't get around. I mean, it doesn't mean that I still can't, you know, be mobily function. And there are other people who I can get in touch with, who I can get in contact with in case I do need a ride. And, again, I don't say this to belittle or put anybody down, but again, it is my decision, my choice, who I choose to ask for a ride. It's no different from anybody else who, you know, chooses and decides for themselves as well. And sometimes there may be some situations in which it may end up being the same person, and there may not be a lot of other people as far as options or who to get in touch with. But as long as there are other options, you know, that has to be my decision. Um, People need to understand and respect that as much as they like for me to respect them. You know, it's a matter of, just having that mutual understanding and respect for each other as far as, making decisions and choices and, being able to speak up for ourselves and, you know, um, respecting each other's independence. And of course, that doesn't mean that I'm not too proud to ask for help. And I'm not trying to overdo self sufficiency, but still be independent like everyone else. Yet at the same time, asking for help um, when I need to. And sometimes it's like there's this idea or there's this mentality, rather, that, people who are handicapped or have various disorders or disabilities, or maybe, mobily limited, or, limited in some ways, but yet, regardless of all that, we're still able to function in other ways. And, you know, sometimes there may be this strong sense of independence and self sufficiency, because of having, many of us and, others having to deal with, people who make us out to feel as if we're always helpless, or if we always need help or instruction, or that we're made out to always be dependent and lacking self-sufficiency, or that we're still inferior or incapable in some ways. And that's not true. And I know there are many out there who've struggled with that, and who can relate to that. And just trying to be an advocate for them, but also respecting them at the same time, as far as that they have their own voice and that they can speak for themselves just as much as I can speak for myself. Let's see, and there are those who are generally handicapped, who do need active instruction, but everyone who is handicapped or limited don't need that level of coaching. So there are some who, understandably are severely handicapped, whether physically and mentally, who, you know, they have to have that instruction, that, unfortunately that they can't think for themselves and they have to, or do a lot on their own. And so they need that assistance. They need that. They're just naturally dependent. But there are those of us, as I said a moment ago, who, are not, that severe, who are able to think, able to function, and, don't necessarily need that kind of instruction or coaching. So, anyways, moving on here, I understand that there are those who care and do not want to see me get hurt or end up in an accident. And likewise, I don't want to see anyone else end up in an accident either. We're all looking out for each other. I know that there have been times where I've gotten a little defensive with people asking me, how I'm getting home, or, if I have lights for my bicycle and whatnot. And, some who are concerned that, because it's dark outside, and if I was still bicycling, it would still be, dangerous. And, I have bicycled at night before, and I do use lights for my bicycle, a front light, of course, on my handlebar, on the handle mechanism, the steering mechanism up front, and, a tail light on the back on my seat. So, I usually pretty much have that covered whenever I'm bicycling, especially at night. And yes, there are times where I do try to avoid bicycling at night if I have to, depending on what I'm doing. But if I have to bicycle at night, I do use bike lights. So I know that there are many out there who do bicycle, and some at night who don't have lights, whether they haven't bought them or whether they just don't use them at all and just think that nothing's going to happen to them, as if they're somehow indestructible. But, unfortunately, they learn a little too late that that's not the case. So, anyways, and, I understand that people care, and I don't want to stop people from caring or dismiss, people just trying to, look out for me and, show that they care enough to, think of my safety. And, like I said, just looking out for each other. I know with some, I've shown that same sense of caring while also respecting their independence and how they get around. So, anyways, just moving on here. In addition, I feel as though some tend to be too parental with their approach towards me. Some making it seem as if I'm having to explain myself as far as how I get somewhere, how I get home, if I have lights for my bicycle. I've already touched on that a moment ago. And even if I know how I'm getting home and others know as well, some still ask as if they're feigning ignorance or, pretending to be ignorant in some way, while some may not know and feel compelled to ask. And again, I'm not trying to put anyone down by, you know, blatantly refer to everyone as ignorant. It's just, I feel like, some people still ask, how I got to this place or how I'm going to get home and stuff as if, you know, as if every time they forget how I get there or that they don't consider how I get there. I mean, even if I got a ride with someone, it would still be the same question. And as if, I'm in this position where I have to, you know, be accountable without choice. And it's like, I don't really necessarily have to explain myself, but, or be accountable to someone else for how I get around. But, I know that most people, again, are just showing, concern and, that sense of caring. And anyways, it's as always as if I'm having to be accountable when the need isn't there, as I just said a second ago. I do use lights for my bicycle when I'm riding at night. It is common sense, as I had touched on that. Kind of got ahead earlier on that, but sometimes when I am leaving a restaurant after a meal with my family later, oh, excuse me, let me back up here. Sometimes when I am leaving a restaurant after a meal with my family, having bicycled to the restaurant, whenever I've said my goodbyes or see you later, and I am going to where I have my bicycle locked up, unlocking it and leaving, it's as if everyone must have me in their sight, in their eyesight, as I'm leaving, as if they need to watch me leave. So, in a sense, that's an example that I was using, indicating where, depending on where I'm meeting my family, like, whichever restaurant for breakfast or lunch on some occasion. And it's a restaurant, of course, where I can get to easily as far as distance and bicycling there. But if there happens not to be a bike rack near the restaurant, and say there's a bike rack at another place near the restaurant, but there's a bit of, distance right there. I mean, not too much distance, but some distance to where I have to lock the bike up at that building and then walk a bit to the restaurant. And the bike rack may be in a place that is not like entirely visible. And, we've already had our meal and we're leaving, we're all hanging out a little bit. And then and I'm leaving, and I say my see you laters to everyone, and I walk over to where I have my bike locked up, and it's like, you know, all of a sudden, again, because the bike rack is not in a place where everybody sees it, it's like people think that I just disappeared. And I've already taken off, I've already left, but it's like, it's almost as if everyone has to watch me leave. And I'm like, why? I don't watch everybody else leave. But anyways, so I've had moments like that. Additionally, it feels as though some attempt to take matters into their own hands, and I was touching on that a little while ago. For example, some who mention me in the third person as if they're talking to someone else concerning giving me a ride, and I'm standing right there with them. It makes me feel as if the choice is taken out of my hands and having to go along with it. Um, so there have also been these occasions where, I'll be talking with people, and then, they'll be bringing up, well, are you going to give Josh a ride home? Or, I could take Josh, or, just however it's played out and however it's verbalized. And it's like the whole time I'm like, I'm right here. You can just ask me directly. Or as far as giving me the option of who I can go with, or, if it is, in their, as far as, if they can get home, if it's closer for them to get home after dropping me off on their way. And again, I'm not saying this to be, unappreciative or ungrateful. It's just that, I'm right there, and, it is about me as far as, who I'm getting a ride with. And, I just like to feel included in that process, even though, I'm being mentioned in the third person, but still that's, maybe there might be times like that, and, nobody's trying to do that, carelessly or inconsiderately. But, still, I guess I just feel better knowing that, I have a say in it. I guess that's kind of where I'm driving it at. So, just making sure that I didn't forget anything here. I know I had mentioned earlier about, those with more special needs who um, are having to be dependent on other people, and again, I know that's not easy. And that, again, for those of us who um, are capable, who are functional, our independence and um, self sufficiency can seem like it is a defense mechanism, if you will, even though we're not trying to be defensive. But I can't speak for everybody else. um, and I know that again, that people aren't trying to be nosy, or getting into personal business or anything like that. you know but that doesn't mean that there aren't some who unfortunately tend to be that way. And I think it's just a matter of, understanding each other's boundaries and whatnot. So, anyways, that's going to do it for now. Um, Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully it gives more knowledge and insight, especially to what goes on within me, inside of me, what I'm feeling, and what I'm attempting to communicate. Um, I hope that you will, give this a like, and I'll have this posted on my Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'll have the link in the comments section, and feel free to give a comment and your thoughts regarding this. Just be sure that if you ask me a question, as I've touched on this before, if you ask me a question and if I'm reading your question and maybe I need more clarification, please don't take offense to that. I just might need more clarification. That way I can better answer the question if I can. So anyways, again, thank you, everyone. Take care and God bless.